Guys, Shredder here, bringing you some more OUTERPLANE content. Today we're going to be going over the July guild raid. I'm going to give you a bit of a breakdown of how it works and some good team comps to get you rolling through the content and help you do lots of damage. So for those of you that haven't done the guild raid before, this is I guess the competitive guild content in the game at the moment. The way it works is there's a main boss as well as 2 mini bosses. The idea is you take down the mini bosses and they give you a set of point modifying buffs and debuffs that you can apply to yourself when you take on the final boss, and based on your damage and contribution your guild gets points, and whoever's at the top of the ranking at the end of the 10 days, there's varying rewards. Pretty standard sort of stuff. But so you want to kill those mini bosses and they're going to give you these different buffs you can apply to yourself for fighting the main boss. So ideally you want to get these mini bosses down first, and then you want to utilize these buffs and debuffs to end up with the biggest point modifier you can when you take down the main boss, and that's how you're going to be accruing your points. It is worth mentioning, these mini bosses, they do give you a lot of points, and they're kind of a once-off. Once it's dead, you can't get any more points, so they're basically like a static fixed amount of points that you can get for the guild raid. So unfortunately, I probably should have made this video yesterday while the first boss was still up. However, we killed it a bit quick and I didn't have time to record the video, so we're doing it today, but I won't be able to show you the gameplay and the mechanics on the first boss, but I'll still discuss it and I'll still show you the team comps against the other boss. So if we look at the bottom boss here, it's a Sigma. So taking a quick look at her immunities, she is immune to fixed damage, which is one of the sources of doing a lot of damage against these massively high HP units. So fixed damage you get from units like your Demiurge Stella. If you've pulled her, she's got it on the chain. She's 10% of max HP. You get it from units like Beth. Now if your unit's got bleed in it, or you use the burst, Beth's got 5% on her skill 3, 3% on her skill 1. If the unit's bleeding on the skill 2, on your burst it does 5%. The other unit, got her in a team here somewhere. The other unit is Lapis. Lapis also has it on her chain, she's got 8% on there. And there is actually one more way that you can do some HP percentage based damage to this boss without using that sort of specific fixed damage, and that is through the curse dot. So curse still does a fixed percent of damage based on the enemy HP. However, it's technically considered a debuff. So curse is basically made for this boss. The ideal team comp for this is just going to be Marion +1 healer. Sayran is the best for this because she can reset skill cooldown and also provide AP on her burst on the skill 2. So this is going to be the best team for this boss to do big damage. Your Marion and your Sayran. Outside of that, there's not a lot of ways to do scaling damage to this amount of HP, so I would strongly recommend you guys build yourself a Marion. It was very useful last guild raid, it's very useful this guild raid. I'll go ahead and show you how it works on this boss. Just like my Marion's effectiveness is very low. I've literally just slapped on auto gear, but for the purpose of showing you how this is going to work, it will be fine. So in terms of Sigma's skills, her first skill prioritizes the front line, does more damage if it's not defender. The boss doesn't actually output that much damage, but we put our Sayran on the front line, so she takes, or our healer on the front line, so it takes the damage. The skill 2 is going to put a counter attack buff on her. So, I mean, the reason that you only run 2 units is you want to maximize the amount of turns that you can take with your Marion to land curses, and specifically on this boss, you don't want to be triggering counter attack all the time as well. It is worth noting on these guild raid encounters there is a turn limit, so you can't just put all your faster stuff on and turn cycle because you might not kill the boss in time. You need to balance your speed and your damage to get it down in time, so 30 turns is the limit here. Her next skill gives herself a crit damage buff. all these bosses have like there's kind of like a passive that makes them take damage from a certain element type. For this element, for this raid, it's water damage. They want you to use water units. They're gonna do more damage and take reduced damage from the enemy. Last raid, I think it was grass, so we had the our Noah teams, etc. And the last skill, she's gonna put speed down as well. So this is basically her mechanics. You don't want to hit her too many times, so you're gonna trigger counterattack, and we want something tanky in the front line. So we'll just go ahead and hit it with our Sarian. I'll just try and land some curses here so you can, basically see what the damage looks like. So 120,000 damage, if you guys just saw that pop up. We'll just hit again. So Sarian's really nice because once you've used all your, curse inflicting skills and they're on cooldown, you can reset them. So Marion, if you get her exclusive equipment also gives you extra curses when you use her burst. So if your Marion is maximum skill up and has the EE, she can actually do 4 curses in one attack on the burst, 120k. So my effectiveness is low. I haven't landed a lot of curses here. It's because I haven't built my unit for it at this moment. But you can see it's doing 120,000 damage every time a curse goes off. So if you build her with a lot of effectiveness, if you put on her EE, if you use your burst, you're going to be doing millions and millions of damage to this boss. Okay, and on stage 4, on the next stage, the health scales up from 4 million to 10 million. So you can see how this is going to end up. So, in the end stages of these bosses, you can have 2 to 3 people clear out the entire 10 million health just with this scaling damage. And, just to show you what I did on stage 5 with my team, I did almost 5 million damage, right? So this is basically just the effect of that HP scaling damage. So while I can't show you this boss specifically, I'll show you the teams I used on this other boss. Oh, someone's hitting it. And so the immunities on the other boss does not include fixed damage, it includes curse. So basically they want you to use Marion on this Sigma boss, and they want you to use your fixed percent damage on the first boss. So the teams that are going to be good for the first boss, the best one that I've tested so far is actually a bleed team. So after the last round of patch notes, Eliza's skill changed a little bit. So her skill 2 now inflicts bleed on a random enemy at the start of battle, and this is ignoring resilience. So why this is really nice now is it means as soon as you go into battle, there's going to be a bleed straight on the boss, and you can start rolling off your HP percent damage from your Beth without having to land a bleed first. So you can cycle it really easily. So I can show you how this works on this boss, but when it's meant to do this percent HP damage, it's just going to pop up as immune. But for a proof of concept, you can have a quick look. So yeah, as you can see, it's already got a bleed on. I can use my skill 3, which is going to do 5% HP based damage. You will see it's going to pop up and say immune. Immune. I have more bleeds, and again, Sarian is sleeper OP. She's a strong, really strong unit. She lets you take extra turns. She lets you reduce skill cooldown on the ultis. She gives you an extra turn. She also has massive heals and feeds action points. So she is my pick for heal on all these guild raid encounters. But this is basically how it plays out. You get the free bleeds at the start. You keep hitting. Immune. So far I would have done 8% HP based damage. We just use Eliza. She's purely here to land more bleeds. Okay, bleeds up because I reset it with the Sarian. I got another ulti to use. But you're basically just gonna be cycling like this. Alright, so I'd be on 13% of his max HP gone. Pretty simple. If you've got Eliza, when you get here, you can pop this skill when your bleeds are getting low for 100% chance. That's the team. If you don't have Eliza, I wouldn't run this comp. it's not sustainable keeping the bleeds up with just Beth. So you need these, well, you need at least Beth and Eliza. The healer can be whatever you like. You just need a bit of sustain. On the early stages of these guild bosses, the boss doesn't do a lot of damage, but in stage 4 and 5 they do considerable damage. You need a little bit of sustain. So that's one team that you can run. If you don't have those bleed units to use on this first boss, that's okay. Another comp that works well for you guys is this team here. So this is essentially going to be focusing on building chain points and getting your Demiurge Stella to use her chain passive for 10% extra damage. So the important units here are your Demiurge Stella, your Valentine, Tio, because she's another fire unit and she's a healer, so she fits that slot well, although you could use Claire. And the last slot, I've got Air just because I have him, but whatever fire unit that's going to do some damage and land crits is fine in there. So the important thing in this setup is you have everyone ideally at 50% crit rate. Okay, everyone at 50% crit rate, and you're going to be running all the crit chain talismans to build up your chain points. And that's really about all there is to it. We'll go run through it on here. Again, it's not ideal on this boss because she's going to have counterattack, but we can show again proof of concept how it's going to work. But we want all fire team and all crit talismans to build chain points as quickly as we can. That's essentially it. Using this team, you should get 2 to 3 chains off in a fight, which is going to be, 20 to 30% of the boss's max HP. And again, if we're on 400k, doing 2 to 3 of these at 10% is going to do 800k to 1.2 million, and on the 10 million HP boss, that's going to do, 2 to 3 million, plus all the other, chip damage that you do while you're in here. So we'll just run it through till we get to the first chain, so you can see how it works. And yeah, like this is not quite as good as the bleed comp. So we're at turn 10 now, and we got our first chain up. Okay, this is not as strong. Make sure you have your Demiurge Stella on the finisher. Not as strong as the bleed comp, but it's still very strong, right? If you don't have the bleed comp, this would be my go-to. Now, if you don't have Demiurge Stella, obviously you can sub her out and use Lapis. She's going to do the same thing, just a little bit less. Her chain is 8% instead of 10% of the boss max HP. I wouldn't recommend using an all-water team. The issue is it's just not consistent enough at getting crits and proccing the crit chain talismans to build the chain up. It's not going to be as fast as getting chains as it is using a team with Valentine with all the fire units. So that's essentially how it works. You get the chains, you get the 10% HP damage, and you nuke it with the scaling damage. Okay. So that's the 2 mini bosses. That's showing you how it's going to work for those and how to get them down quick. You will end up doing, again, with using these HP scaling damage, you will end up doing millions of damage, especially on the later stage bosses. On the first, 2 to 3 stages, it's not as important using scaling HP because their HP is lower, it doesn't do as much, but it is still strong. So with the mini bosses out of the way, we will take a look at the main raid boss now. Okay guys, so the main raid boss, he does have a few annoying mechanics. So he is immune to curse, he is immune to speed down and defense down, and actually I should have mentioned all of the bosses, the mini bosses and the main boss are all immune to this raid, so sorry, put your Eternals away, she's not going to be useful. But notably she is not immune to fixed damage, which is good for us. In terms of her skills, the skill 1, the leftmost unit is going to get stunned and burned for 1 turn if it's not a defender. This sounds bad, but it is actually useful for us. We'll discuss in a moment. Skill 2 is going to be an attack on all enemies that puts burn. This does hurt quite a bit. Skill 3. Now this is the one to look out for. You definitely want to break the boss before he uses this skill. So it removes all buffs from the enemy and attacks increased damage to enemies that are not healers. This is going to one-shot basically everything, at least on stage 3 and on stage 2. This is like one unit, just delete it. So this is the one you really need to look out for. Now if he is, this is the other mechanic with these little balls that he has. If the little mini sub bosses are up, he's not going to take any weakness gauge damage. He will get a barrier when he attacks an enemy that's afflicted with burn, while these are up as well. Again, this down the bottom here, this is just the same elemental advantage stuff that all the other bosses have in the raise, so again it wants you to use water units. And at the end of every turn he's going to respawn all those little mini bosses. So essentially, to clear this boss, you need to clear the little mini boss things first before you can do any weakness gauge damage to the boss. And if you leave them up, the boss is going to put barriers up and be really annoying. So the team that I've found to be the most useful for this boss and able to clear on stage 3 with a decent amount of points so far has been this rainbow team. And basically the idea is you just need a lot of AoE damage. You need to be killing these balls consistently and still being able to break the boss. Again, we're going to use Valentine for the crit rate buff, and we're going to be running on everyone our crit rate talismans to ensure that we can get a weakness break, a gauge break on the boss. So I'll just show you my unit stats quickly. This is my Stella, it's just a light offensive for this. This is my Rin. Okay, so we're really just trying to stack as much damage as we can and be faster than the boss and Noah. Now, you know, Earth units are going to do less damage to this boss. It is a disadvantage, but we're pretty limited in, you know, which AoE units we have at the moment. Now there are actually, you know, there are a couple of other options if you built these units that might be reasonable, even water ones. If you have Adelaide built, she does a lot of AoE damage. If you have Alpha built, he also does a lot of AoE damage. So there are some other units you can try, but in terms of, you know, ones that are built up already that most people should have, I'd imagine that most people would have these ones. So this is the comp that I've tested. So we'll hop in and I'll show what it looks like. And so just before we go in, I'll just show you, these are the debuffs I'm using. Again, you just want to try and get as many final point modifiers as you can without dying. There are, you know, other ones for elemental type units. There's a lot of things that might just tip you over the edge, so you want to do some practice runs first to kind of test it out. But this is one that I've been able to successfully clear reasonably consistently. So let's hop in and have a look. I'm not going to run the entire battle through because it's a bit long, but I'll show you at least what it looks like and how you need to do the ball mechanic. So yeah, basically you need a lot of AoE damage to be able to get these down. The timing is quite important. Like I said, the boss respawns the balls at the start of his turn, so if you kill the balls right before the boss takes his turn, he's just going to respawn them straight away. So it's best to be able to kill them just after a boss turn. Now remember, as I was just saying before as well, this attack here, prioritize the leftmost, stunned and burned. If it's not a defender, it sounds quite annoying, but it's actually a perfect spot for us to put Demiurge Stella in. She's immune to stun, and the burns will just proc counter attacks for her. So is pretty good for that use. So you're just going to need to play around with the timing of your units with the speed, so you can get these balls cleared in, you know, an ideal timing. But it's going to depend on your unit speed. It's going to depend on which of the debuffs that you use on the boss, because some of them increase the speed and the HP on these little balls. So you will have to fiddle with it and do some practices probably. Okay, so as you saw, procced the revenge on her just before when he got the burn. So this is like pretty good for me with my time and my setup. the boss has just taken his turn, I'm going to kill all these little mini bosses, and I'm now free to do some weakness gauge damage to the boss. Okay, and so this is essentially the rotation, the cycle you're going to go through: killing the mini bosses, doing weakness gauge, and then breaking the boss as soon as you can. Alright. And so again, right, the boss respawns the balls. He does that attack on the leftmost unit, which is going to proc Dark Stellar to come and attack these. So this is, you know, this is essentially it. Again, this entire thing takes a little while to get through. So much of the whole run, but I will pop up on screen the points from me clearing it, so you can see what it looks like in terms of final damage. And as we clear out the rest of the mini bosses and do some testing, there will be, you know, optimizations on which debuffs and buffs we use to get the most points. But this is the basic strategy of it. Okay, so I hope that that's helped you all at least get an idea of how to get rolling on these bosses. Again, if stage 3 is too hard for you, go to stage 2. You can use the same team. You can also use a full blue team on the stage 2 boss because it's significantly weaker. If you're using a full blue team, there is a point modifier here. Team restriction 1, only water units to get 65% extra bonus points, so there is quite a lot. What the full water team looks like, that I used at least on level 2 of the boss and worked, is this plus Lapis. So this is the team that I used. If you can make it work, gets you a lot of extra bonus points. Yeah, so hopefully that gets you guys rolling, shows you how to use the scaling HP percent damage to kill the mini bosses, and showed you a team that works against stage 3 of the main boss in order to kill it. Yeah, best of luck, guys. Obviously we got 10 days, well, as of recording this video I think we have 9 or 8 days left. The higher level guilds with the more, you know, higher member cap should probably do better. But yeah, have fun. I mean, in terms of the rewards, the difference between, you know, first place and 100th place is pretty minimal. Everyone's getting good levels of the guild buff, so enjoy yourself, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. If you like, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content. Bye.